Hi everyone, I'm Damien Cotter, Logan's Cycling Club. With me today is our club coach Ben Carman. Thanks for sitting down with us, with me, not us. It's only a one-man production crew. Today, Ben. So it's our first short video today, and we're hoping to do some further videos in the future, all of which we will upload onto the Logan Cycling Club members Facebook page. Each one's going to be just a short video, cover different topics, and we hope everyone from beginners to seasoned riders and even racers will get something from them. Before we kick it off though, Ben, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history of the Logan Cycling Club, and your role, I suppose, what you see your role as a club coach within the club to include?
Yeah, I've been in the Logan Club for I think 15 years now. My dad, Dave Carman, was the club coach way back then as well, and I've been kind of racing pretty much since day dot, and managed to spend a few years racing in Europe in the last few years, and kind of decided I wanted to try and give back a bit to the club that has helped me a lot, and so stepped up as the club coach. And I mean, for me, I mainly see the role as kind of being that bridge between cycling is such a sport where experience goes such a long way, and it's hard to know what to do when you start out. So I like to see myself as that bridge to help people step into, whether it's just social riding or racing, bridge into being able to at least have the experience to enjoy it a bit.
Yep. So I suppose trying to get people who may be new to the club, maybe in that sort of intermediate sort of social sort of riding demographic. And I suppose giving them a bit of assistance to make their social cycling more enjoyable or safer, and also maybe if there's a bit of a transition there for those who might be interested in coming over and doing a bit of racing as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Was there any truth to the rumour that you were born with training wheels, or was that just not the case at all? You were born on a bicycle? Because you've been racing since you're like forever?
Yeah, no training wheels, just...
Cool. Let's kick this off then. So today we're going to go back to basics, Yep. Talk about group etiquette, how to ride safely, hand gesturing, and essentially how to not be a knob when you're riding with a group and visible to the public. So I suppose we met up a little while ago and spoke about some different topics that we'd like to cover, and when we spoke about doing this video, I think one of the things that we tend to, I suppose, forget, for want of a better term, is that at some point in time everybody's started at the beginning, and some of us have been lucky enough to have, I suppose, experienced people take us under their wing and tell us about some of the things that we're going to discuss today. Tell us about group etiquette and how to ride safely and what to do, and maybe answer some of those questions that people may be a little bit daunted to ask for a fear of looking out of place or what the case. And I suppose for those people who are new to coming to riding with a group, it can be a bit daunting, I suppose, either riding with a group or I suppose plucking up the courage to ask some of these questions that hopefully we can talk about today.
Yeah, for sure.
So I suppose to kick us off, we want to maybe talk about some of the safety things, some of the basic safety stuff. So
I mean, one of the number one safety things is obviously wear a helmet. But when you're especially riding in a group, the main thing to sort of keep in mind is that there's a bit of a sweet spot. When you're riding with other people, you don't want to be too far behind and all over the place, and it becomes hard to also keep up. But you definitely don't want to be too close, and you don't want to overlap wheels. So have your front wheel up next to the rear wheel of the person in front of you. That puts you in a trouble of them taking your wheel out if they move. That's something that does take a bit of practice, so it's kind of one of those things that don't be afraid to turn up to a bunch riding practice as well. Speak to those around you, they'll always help you out. But yeah, that's something you definitely want to.
So I suppose when we talk about that, essentially half wheeling, is that a term we sometimes use or hear?
Yeah.
You speak about staying a distance back and not overlapping those wheels. I suppose the drama is if that person up front unexpectedly comes across an obstacle or something happens and they have to take some sort of evasive action, it's pretty hard to avoid that if you're the one with a half a wheel overlapping theirs at the back, which is a pretty dangerous position there.
Yeah, it's kind of about giving yourself room for something to go wrong.
Yep. And we'll probably briefly touch on this later when we might do a little bit of a video clip on this. But what do you see the role of, I suppose, that person who's in the lead or at the front of a group? I suppose they've got a pretty important job when it comes to, or important role when it comes to considering those behind them and people behind them, safety. So you've got to sort of tip for that person up, who's in the lead and.
Yeah. So when you're on the front of a group, you're pretty much steering the ship, so to speak, and everything you do gets exaggerated. If you're going over a hill and you need to freewheel, that sort of stopping of the speed and subsequent, acceleration as well is exaggerated through the group as you go behind. So even if though it may not feel like you're stopping and starting much at all, especially if it's a big group and there's 10 people back, that can kind of result in the people at the back running into the back of each other and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's about just trying to be as smooth as possible on the front, and giving everyone behind a bit of a chance to be smooth as well. And that kind of goes for everyone behind us. It's not just on the front person. It's kind of up to everyone to kind of, participate in trying to keep things smooth as well. Because it kind of takes everyone doing this to end up with a group that's not, ending up zigzagging and on the brakes and accelerating and running up the back of each other. The other one for the front person is communicating and signalling. It's really good to point out any obstacles, whether it's a car, a hole, or I know the local peanut running around on the street.
And it is Logan, so this is possible.
It is really important to point everything out, and just basically let everyone know behind what's going on, because and anyone who's ridden in a group knows it's pretty hard to see what's going on at the front when you're 5 or 6 people back.
Yeah, and I suppose we'll hopefully cover a bit of that later. We'll go through some of those most common hand signals that, for pointing out those obstacles. But like you said, potholes, traffic islands, the car or the wheelie bin on the side of the road, I suppose they're all sort of pretty common things that would occur. And like you said, if you're the 6th person back, I suppose those up front just need to remember that person, like you said, can't necessarily see what's coming. What obstacles are coming up. So, and we've all seen crashes and that too, where people have, no one's called it up the front, and then all of a sudden somebody 10 wheels back gets taken out by a pole or a stick on the road that no one calls. So.
Yeah, the other two major hand signals is when you're stopping. It's especially if you're coming up to a set of traffic lights and there's that, it's orange with a bit of green in it kind of situation where some people want to go and some want to stop. It's really good to just make it clear we're stopping hand signal, so people behind aren't left kind of guessing what you're going to do. And we don't have indicators on the bike, but you can use your hands, we do. So it's good to point left and right in terms of which direction you're going as well, so people aren't left guessing what you're going to do.
Yep. And I suppose a lot of these, if we're riding with the same group of people all the time, a lot of these are going to be nutted out, or you're going to be pretty well versed in them. But as we said, keep in mind there might be new riders to the group who, coming up to that orange light or that red light, are a bit unsure, it might be a bit hesitant, might jump on the brake a little bit earlier. So just be mindful of that, and they're the things that we sort of want to encourage people to get familiar with so that we can ride safely in a group. So we might move along. One more thing, sorry, we spoke about, I know you said it a bit more eloquently than this, but you said about the old chicken wings coming out.
Yeah. That's actually probably one of the most common problems I see in group rides is people not bending their elbows. It sounds really minor and kind of annoying and difficult to do if you're new to it, but bending your elbows and not riding with stiff, straight arms makes a huge difference. If anything does happen, I mean, inevitably you're going to miss a pothole or a cat's eye or something, and when you do hit something like that, it stops that shot going through your body, and you just basically have very little control if you've got straight arms. Whereas if you bend your elbows, it's essentially like adding suspension to your bike in a way, and it gives you a hell of a lot more control. I'm not talking about riding in some stupid aerodynamic position. It just needs to be a slight bend. It might feel weird to begin with, but it does make a huge difference.
I suppose, like you said, you hit that pothole. The reality is, if you've got those straight arms, that shock, like you said, goes up. You lose that ability to sort of steer and because you're not absorbing any of that shock. But if you've got that bit of a bend in your elbow, you keep a little bit more control. Hopefully, keep it upright.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully, it happens to the best of us. Cool. So we spoke about a couple of things earlier, and we won't go on about this too much. But the hand signalling, and we'll pop out in a minute and do a little bit of a video and put some of those hand signalling signals into play, and to show you some of those common ones that we use every day when we're riding in a group. But also with hand signals, we wanted to touch on communication. So not just the gesturing with your hands, but talking to the riders around you and letting people around you know, I suppose, what you're doing. So you're not that erratic dude in the group who just cuts this way and cuts that way and does random stuff. So I suppose what's your pointers or tips on that, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, like, communication in general is pretty key. I mean, even if it's telling the person next to you that you want to, roll over and change turns, or even if you're pointing something out, turning left or right, saying it as well as pointing it helps a lot. And I mean, just any general communication. If you're getting really tired, it's actually good to just tell the people around you that you are.
Getting a phone call. Hang on a second. Well-oiled machine, people.
Yeah, like if you're getting tired, you're more likely to make a mistake. So even speaking up about that, put your ego away for a second, and that kind of thing can make a big difference.
Sure. I think one of the, I suppose, for me, riding in a group, and like yourself, we ride groups relatively frequently, but coming up to intersections, that's a big one that I hear all the time is, that person up the front, if there's a car coming, call it car up or car on the right, or slowing or stopping, or I think as well as your hand gesturing, that probably goes a long way.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is it kind of mostly boils back to the same point of being predictable. If the people around you can predict what you're going to do before you do it, you're going to avoid most problems.
Yeah, and I suppose if we can get some of these habits like communication and signalling as part of our daily habits when we ride, then you speak to that predictability. Well, if I ride with you all the time and I know that you always call something on the a car coming through a roundabout, or you're always going to call clear or something like that, then that builds a lot of trust too with the people that you're riding with, and that's a big bonus in the safety aspect itself too, trusting those you're riding with.
Yeah, for sure.
Very good. We spoke briefly then about being on the front and being tired and rolling off and those sorts of things. Well, I suppose first of all, let's maybe just clarify what we're talking about. Someone watching this video might not know what we mean when we say taking a turn and rolling off. So I suppose let's maybe have a quick chat about group structure, as in riding two abreast and people on the lead and that, and then maybe talk about what we mean when we say rolling off or.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of one of those things you have to experience to appreciate, but riding behind another person makes life a lot easier. And in a group setting, it's really good to just kind of take it in turns of people on the front who rides in the lead. And generally on a group ride, you don't want to do too short of a turns, but I find generally that sort of 2 to 3 minute periods on the front, and then moving off to give someone else a turn is sort of the standard. And when you're doing this, it's definitely key to keep in mind that it is the Australian law to ride no more than 2 abreast. So when we're doing this, you don't want to be 3, 4 wide. It is about keeping a pretty narrow and streamlined group. That's not only the law, like it is for a reason. It's going to keep traffic flow and people a lot happier and safer. So when you are rolling turns, it's basically rolling in a circular motion, essentially, which means that you should be coming over and to the left. So like from the right side to the left when you're changing turns. And like back to the communication, you tell the person to your left that you want to do that before you do it. Otherwise you end up in a drag race, just streaming down the road.
And we all love racing, but sometimes it's when you're in a group.
Yeah, there's time and a place.
This brings me back to that essential tips of not being a knob in the group. So pretty fair to say that if we're riding 2 abreast, and we'll call them like a left and a right column, that the one on the right is going to be going slow, slightly faster, so to speak, on that turn to roll off, and the person at the head of the right one will roll in front of the one on the left, and that next person comes up, and then you ride 2 abreast like that for a couple of minutes, so to speak. Same thing, roll over into the front.
Yeah.
And that's that circular motion that you spoke of.
Yeah, exactly. It's also really easy to want to just do what we call the double peel, where both people in the front just peel out and let everyone through. But that's a pretty big no, to be honest. I mean, it puts you 4 wide. It ends up pushing people way out, further out into the road than you need or is necessary. And it just creates a whole lot of risk and drama, and annoys a lot of motorists too. So
yeah, and that's a pretty big thing, I suppose, isn't it? We're all out there to enjoy the space and to use it safely, but also part of our responsibility is to make sure that we portray a good image to the community. And let's face it, we have a tenuous relationship with motorists at the best of times, so we don't want to do things that then, I suppose, compromise that. And every time you go to a party, you're the person who gets thrown into the bucket with all the other cyclists who ride 10 abreast and clog up the whole road, and then everybody hates it. So I suppose keep that in mind. It's part of our responsibility too.
Yeah, for sure.
Righto, well, it's probably, we wanted to keep this short today as just a bit of an intro. Obviously, we're also cutting our teeth on the production, with my phone propped up against an empty glass of water at the cafe. So we're going to work on these, so bear with us. But might just have how do people going to get in contact with you, Ben, if they've got, I suppose, questions in regards to,
club coaching? I'm the club coach for a reason. So please, anyone, don't feel free to reach out or approach me if I'm at a race or a bunch ride. And there is no question too stupid or too small. And definitely don't be intimidated by my European race experience. I'm there to help, and I do want to get involved with the newer riders stepping into the club as well as the more experienced racers. So you can reach out with me on Ben Carman on Facebook. Just shoot me a message on there, or we might get fancy and pop my email in the screen somewhere. If we're
easy. Let's not make promises that we can't actually back up.
If the production budget allows it.
Yeah, we're just working through some email teething issues too. We've had a bit of a change of committee, so some of those emails might have just changed a little bit. But yeah, you can DM Ben or even myself if you can't find Ben for whatever reason on Facebook, and I'll make sure those questions get through. Also too, if you have anything that you'd like to see put into one of these fabulous videos, then flip those through as well, open to suggestions, and we'll see if we can make that happen. But yeah, I think that's probably about it for this part of it. We might shoot out and do a little bit of filming and put some of those signalling and hand gestures into place, and we'll go back to the production studio. I'll mash it all together into one smooth, sweet video. So that's the plan. So thanks very much for watching, and Ben, thanks very much for sitting down today and helping to make these sort of hopefully a bit of an ongoing thing. And I can just reiterate too, or support what Ben said before. 12 months ago, I sort of got into racing at the club, a little over 12 months ago, and I think you were still in Europe at the time, Ben, and came back, and I basically just went and pestered him at races and flicked him some messages, and absolutely approachable guys, happy to help out, gave me plenty of pointers. I didn't have the physical ability to put any of them into place, but I'm working on it. So, but very approachable, flick him a message, and he's doing a good job as a club coach, and hopefully we can keep building our culture there and keep things moving forward. All right.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining.
Cheers.